I'm喬許勞森, and I wrote and directed Long Story Short. So Long Story Short is about a guy named Teddy who finds himself jumping forward in time every anniversary in his marriage and not being able to remember anything that's happened in the year between. So it's essentially about Teddy's life flashing before his eyes and learning the value of the shortness of time. I came up with the idea for the film after having, a bit of a crisis in my own life of looking back in the last few years and worrying that I hadn't done enough, or where did the time go, and not even being able to really remember certain details in the last few years. And so after struggling with that and being a bit frightened of that feeling, I sort of sat down in front of the laptop and came up with Long Story Short. As a writer, I think one of the most obvious influences for me would be Frank Capra. In particular, It's a Wonderful Life, and even Dickens' A Christmas Carol, and being able to look at an entire life in snapshots and learning a lesson that way. So as a director, I'd say a more classic influence on me would be someone like Billy Wilder, and taking a movie like The Apartment by way of example. Lots of interiors, lots of two-hander scenes, and bringing that to life. He was a master of that sort of stuff. But we shot the entire film on Steadicam as well. I really wanted it to feel like there was a fluidity to it, and we were constantly in motion, so that we never felt like we were resting in one place, and we were just always pushing forward. And so, something Inarritu's Birdman, used a lot of that, and it's constantly floating and moving. We weren't single shot, of course, although there are long single shots in the film. We were, because we're always inside Teddy's head, we never leave Teddy. I just really wanted to feel like there was a stream of consciousness, and the Steadicam was a good way to get that across. I find myself drawn to romance, I possibly for the same reason that poets since the dawn of time have been drawn to romance. It is a great mystery. It's perhaps the most fulfilling thing of all, and the hardest thing to get and to keep. I certainly learn from my own relationships. I fantasize about romance in my own life, and I put that on the page. And again, I think that's a very human thing to do. I think we all, Disney has a lot to answer for. We grew up thinking that, we were princes and princesses, and that kind of love was real. And I think it can be, but it certainly should be real in movies, if nowhere else. Yeah. Often my first drafts as a writer come out pretty fast, so they're a bit of a purge, and they're a bit messy, obviously, and Long Story Short was no different. It really felt like a stream of consciousness. I was really trying to keep up with as fast as my brain was moving, and I'd mapped out a few things, so I knew that I wasn't ever going to write myself into a corner. But it was very emotional. It was pretty manic. To be honest, it probably lasted for 2 or 3 weeks to get that first draft out. And then the process of rewriting and shaping and finessing takes much longer. And I enjoy that part quite a lot, actually, the rewriting process. And being able to step away from it and come back to it with fresh eyes and feel like you're reading it like someone who hasn't written it. That's the ideal. I'd say 2-3 weeks, that first draft, and then by the time went through some readings, some staged readings, and that really helped us highlight what was working and what wasn't. And then by the time we kind of hit pre-production, I'd say a couple of years had passed at that point. But the genesis of the idea probably was percolating or germinating inside me for about 4 or 5 years prior to that. So as an Australian based in Los Angeles, I have a bit of an advantage that I have a couple of countries at my disposal really to explore where I can shoot a film. And Long Story Short is an ambitious film because it's in a lot of ways could look like a small film. It takes place, a lot of it takes place inside one apartment, small cast, and it could fool you into thinking this could be easily done. But it's tricky. It's a deceptively hard film, and I think what drew me to Australia is that Australians as filmmakers and crew and cast, we're great at doing a lot with a little. That is a real skill of Australian crews. We're industrious, and so I really felt like in order to get the most bang for our buck for this sort of film, and to really just be inventive with how far we can go and how cinematic we can look in a few locations and with a small cast, I felt like Australia made the most sense. So the casting process was a mix between very easy and very difficult. We'll start with the very easy. The role of Sam that went to Ronnie Chieng, didn't ever ask anyone else to do that role, didn't audition anyone, just Ronnie was the first person who made sense to me, and we went straight to him and he said yes. That's as easy as it gets. Zara, also was relatively a simple process in that I think she was the third audition tape I'd saw, and I think I immediately wrote to the producers and said, well, this is the one to beat. Zara's the one to beat here, because really she's ticking all the boxes that I had imagined Leanne to be. And ultimately she remained in my mind, and I saw lots of people just the best choice. So it was really it was a relief to find her early. On the harder side, Teddy is a colossal role. It is, I mean, it's almost 90 pages. Oh, sorry, it's more than that. It's sort of over 100 pages of him talking. I think Rafe told me, and I hadn't realized, that he says every second line in the film. It's Teddy, someone, Teddy, someone, Teddy, someone, for the entire thing. So it's a lot, and he has to cover a lot of emotional ground. Not just be comic, but he has to be dramatic and really has to suffer a great deal and find lightness and shade and all that kind of thing. So we auditioned lots and lots of actors in Australia, and I was looking for something very, very specific, and I just couldn't find it in any of these excellent actors. But there was just something, some sort of X factor, whatever you want to call it, that I was really searching for, couldn't find. And my agency in the States helped out looking and reaching out to the US and the UK, and Rafe Spall's name came up, and I had been a big fan of his, and I was like, wow, that's a good idea. Physically, he's terrific, and I think let's jump on the phone with him. So I got on the phone with him, and after an hour conversation with him, I hung up and called the producers and said, we got our guy. I mean, this is him. He's just his rhythms, the way he's thinking about the script, the way, just how funny he was with me, and his gravitas. That was important. He couldn't be so flippant, that so light that he wasn't anchoring this film. He just sort of ticked all the boxes, and I was lucky enough that he, said yes and flew out to the other side of the planet to shoot this film. So yeah, it was a mission, but ultimately we got the best people in each role. So Nikki Barrett, who cast the film, I've had a working relationship with Nikki for a long, long time. And I just think she's terrific. She really understands more than a lot of people the sort of tone that I'm trying to get with my stuff. She knows, I think, really well which actors are hitting it right, how to direct them to appeal to my sensibilities a bit as a director. And she thinks outside the box as well. I mean, she's really tries to be creative and imaginative with casting ideas. And she's always got her finger on the pulse. She's constantly watching everything from theatre to film. And I think she's really got a great understanding of actors and range in this country. So I love working with her, and I hope we continue to work together, because we've, it's going to be hard to let someone else get used to my madness, but Nikki understands it. Well, comedies, I think, are really, really hard to cast for lots of reasons. I mean, but the main one is, I mean, I think it may have been Carl Reiner who said, forgive me if it's not, but he said that comedy is drama plus timing, right? So in a sense, you're doing drama and you're doing something extra. And so to find actors who can do comedy is in and of itself tough. Now, to find actors who can do the sort of comedy I'm looking to do in this film and others, where it's truthful, where you're not going for the laugh, where you need to be quick, you need to speak and think really quickly, because there's a lot of words on the page and you have to kind of mask that. You need to be able to perform it in a way where it doesn't feel like you're speaking a lot. So you need to find dynamism in the performance, so it's not this one sort of monotonous delivery of all the lines. So that is a really, really difficult undertaking. Not just in Australia, the world over. I mean, there really aren't that many actors who can do this sort of thing. And that was part of the difficulty in finding it. And furthermore, it's hard enough to cast actors in each role, and there's sort of some sort of lightning in a bottle to make sure that those actors have chemistry. Because that's something you can't really invent in post. I mean, they sort of have it or they don't. And with Rafe being over in England and Zara being here, we could never get them in the room to do a chemistry read. That was sort of impossible. You were really just praying that once they got together, there was going to be this lovely on-screen chemistry. And I got lucky, I think, because they work so well together. Their rhythms are so, electric. They just bounce back and forth so well. And it brought I think it elevated the script, and it just makes the romance part of the film that much more believable and heartfelt, I think. Rafe Spall, he is he really is a bravura actor. I mean, he's just kind of match fit right now. He's going from job to job to job to job, and I think he'd finished, long story short, went off to do a one-man, show on the West End, and, all the series of movies, you name it, he's just non-stop right now. And so, what's he like to work with? I mean, he gives everything to it. No two takes are the same. He really throws everything at it. He is not a robotic actor. He's a really instinctive actor. He tries things, and nothing's ever dull. Nothing's ever boring, and he'll take big swings and he can drop it back down. I mean, he's just my kind of people. I really enjoy hanging out with him. He's funny. The crew love him. He's got a lot of energy. He always said part of his job is to, if you're number one on the call sheet like he was, is to keep the energy up. And these long days, it's hard to do that. And so this is a guy who's just lived on sets, most of his adult life, and that sort of professionalism is so obvious when you work with him. I hope I get a chance to work with him again, but this one definitely required every single thing of him. Not a day off, not a scene off. He was pushed from pillar to post, and he delivered. So I'd known Zara Newman as a theatre actor in Australia for many years. I mean, she really has climbed to the very top of theatre here in this country and dominated for a long time. And when I got to work with her, what is so wonderful about Zara is her professionalism. She takes the craft very seriously, and so do I. And I think because I have theatre training as well as an actor, that I think we approach the work with the same seriousness, with the same precision. So unlike Rafe, Zara really is very precise in her takes. Take 1, 2, 3. Unless I ask her to change, she'll really keep it really, really anchored and surgical in her delivery, which is so helpful because you can't have two actors like Rafe doing that, because then it would just be the two Tasmanian devils, whirling around the room. So it was a perfect balance of, Zara being able to weigh him down and let him bounce off her. It was a lovely match, the two of them. But Zara's terrific, and just watching her receive direction, process it. She'd take a moment and she'd process it and map it out in her head. really cleverly and go, I got it, and she'd never miss. I don't think she ever dropped a line. I don't think she ever flubbed. She's just on it every single time. Ronnie Cheng, I've met Ronnie over the years, in sort of comedy circles a little bit, and just think he's such a nice guy and obviously an incredible comedian. And I've been watching him on the upward trajectory in the last few years, going into The Daily Show and Crazy Rich Asians and then beyond. So to get him on the film in the first place was a real privilege. But he's a guy who, again, just really passionately, one of our first conversations on the phone, he said, I really want to do a good job in this film. I really want to deliver, and I think I can. I think I can give you what you want. I'm going to work hard, and he did. We flew him out from New York. He was constant. He was in between. We got him in this small window, and he made it work. And he came out. And I think what's so exciting about this for Ronnie is it's going to show a part of Ronnie's ability that he doesn't get asked to do very often. Perhaps never before this. And I think a lot of people are going to be so surprised with his range and his ability. He really, really touches me, in the film. And I remember on the day when we were dealing with some of the more dramatic stuff, watching him through the monitor, I was really emotionally overcome with his performance. I found him to be just an actor with incredible depth and dynamism, and I think the sky's the limit with Ronnie. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people with this, and he's going to surprise a lot more people with more roles to come. So Noni Hazelhurst is a national treasure here in Australia, and I grew up watching her on children's television. So Noni's just sort of been this ubiquitous figure in Australian entertainment from my entire life. And I had known Noni a little bit in functions around, and so finally got to work with her. This is the first time I'd ever worked with her, and that was probably the most starstruck I got on set was having Noni around. But she is a pro like no other. This is a woman who just hits a mark, knows where the line is, it will take direction better than anyone, and it's just a delight to have. I mean, she's just so generous of spirit and warm and funny, and it was such a treat to get someone of her caliber in that role. I think she really does add a magic to it that few other actors could have injected into that role. So Matt Toll, our cinematographer, my relationship with Matt began on a short film that I had made called The 11 O'Clock, and Matt had shot that, and that film went on to reach great heights, and it was, I thought it was expertly shot. And when we were talking about which DPs to consider, when Matt's name came up, I went, oh look, not only do I think his work is really great, I remember him just being an excellent energy on set, a positive energy. And I think that's what this film needs, And when we spoke, we really spoke about elevating this film visually and being able to do something a little different and not make the traditional rom-com look, the American rom-com look. That was something that Matt and I agreed on. We didn't want to kind of give that glossy American look. We wanted something different. And we started talking about foreign films, foreign comedies, French comedies in particular. And the look that they often have is a little more realistic, and it's just different, I suppose. And we went down that path, and Matt was so generous with his knowledge that he's picked up along the way in his career, and we really we became pretty fast friends, and I think we've done something pretty different, with this, and I owe a lot to Matt for that. I recall a particularly good day of shooting was down at Milk Beach, is what it's called, where we shot the wedding for the film, and then afterwards this sort of little barefoot dancing scene in the sunset. The weather was just perfect. It's surely one of the most beautiful locations in Sydney. It's just this amazing sort of, little plain, grassy plain looking out over Sydney Harbour and the water. And Rafe's family was there with us on set that day, and his kids and his wife. And it was a really joyous day. I think wedding scenes bring out that feeling sometimes, but it did for us. It was a joyous day, and Ronnie was really making everyone laugh on set, and I recall that being. And then what we shot in the dying sunlight of the day, and it was just this sort of love letter to Sydney. Really, it felt like we were really highlighting the beauty of this city, and I recall feeling pretty happy at the end of that day, going home, going, well, at least we've got that. I think the message of the film is a simple one, and that is, don't waste time. It's all we've got, and it's running out. And make the most of every moment, and don't wait to do anything. It's we've heard it a million times, don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today. That's really the message of the film. Live a full life, and fill it with love and good people, because you never know how long you got. And so I hope people are motivated by this film. I hope they watch it and think about their own lives, and perhaps do immediately one of those things that they've been putting off. And if that happens, I'm proud of the film. I really hope people enjoy the film because it has so much heart, and I think there's a really sweet, inspirational message behind it. It is about a human condition I think we all suffer from time to time, which is, we can procrastinate, and we can waste time a little bit, or we can, put things off. And I think a lot of people are going to see themselves in Teddy's dilemma. And I hope they really root for the love of Teddy and Leanne. It's a relationship I hope we all get behind. It's a bit of a tearjerker. I think you'll laugh a few times in it. But I hope ultimately you walk away feeling motivated and inspired to live a full, rich life today and not tomorrow. Well, I hope people, feel a whole lot of things watching this film. From, there's comedy, there's romance, there's drama. I know that sounds, but it really does go through all these things. And I think you'll laugh, I think you'll cry. And ultimately, I think you'll feel inspired. I hope that you feel happy at the end of it and motivated to attack life and live a rich, full life.